The silent arrival. The Andromeda sector was dying. For 300 cycles, the Corvani Federation and the Zalathi Dominion had torn each other apart across 1,000 star systems. Their war had become the galaxy's festering wound, spreading destruction like a disease through peaceful territories and neutral zones. Commander Krex of the Corvani stood on his flagship's bridge, his 4 arms crossed over his crystalline chest. His species had evolved on a world of eternal storms, their bodies adapting to channel electricity through their silicon-based forms. Across the battlefield, Sovereign Mela of the Zalathi coiled her serpentine body around her command throne. Her scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that communicated her emotions to her crew. Both leaders had inherited this war from their predecessors, and both knew they would likely pass it to their successors. The battlefield today was the nexus point, a gravitational anomaly where 7 star systems converged. Whoever controlled it would control trade routes worth entire empires. The Corvani had brought 800 warships. The Zalathi had matched them with their own bioships, living vessels that healed themselves and adapted to enemy weapons. The void between them was littered with the corpses of previous battles, metal and organic matter floating in a macabre dance around the anomaly's edge. Commander Krex studied his tactical display. His fleet was arranged in the Thunder Formation, a strategy that had won them victories for generations. Energy crackled between his ships, creating a network of destructive power. The Zalathi responded with their spiral swarm, their bioships moving in hypnotic patterns that confused targeting systems. Both sides knew this battle would cost thousands of lives. Both sides had accepted it. War was all they knew anymore. Then something changed. The sensors on both flagships detected an anomaly within the anomaly, a ripple in space-time that shouldn't exist. Krex's science officer, a younger Corvani named Vertex, spoke with confusion in his harmonic voice. "Commander, there's something emerging from subspace. It's not using any known method of faster-than-light travel. It's simply appearing, as if it was always there but we couldn't see it." Sovereign Mela received similar reports. Her bioship's organic sensors, usually perfect at detecting any form of life or technology, showed nothing. Yet visual confirmation was undeniable. Something massive was materializing at the exact center of the nexus point. The object that appeared defied every law of engineering either species understood. It was a sphere, perfectly smooth, roughly the size of a small moon. Its surface was absolute black, not reflecting any light, absorbing everything that touched it. The only indication it existed was the way it blocked the stars behind it, creating a perfect circle of darkness. Both fleets stopped their pre-battle maneuvers. 800 Corvani ships powered down their Thunder Formation. The Zalathi bioships ceased their spiral dance. For the first time in 3 centuries, both sides were focused on the same thing. Krex ordered every scanner, every probe, every method of detection aimed at the sphere. The results were impossible. The sphere had no mass signature, yet it clearly had gravity. It emitted no energy, yet it was obviously powered. It had no weapons visible, yet every warrior in both fleets felt threatened by its presence. The Zalathi tried biological scans, searching for life signs. Their bioships reported something that made Sovereign Mela's scales turn pale. The sphere was neither alive nor dead. It existed in a state their organic technology couldn't classify. It was technology so advanced it had transcended the boundary between artificial and natural. An elder Corvani warrior, scarred from 100 battles, whispered something that made the entire bridge go silent. He spoke of ancient legends, stories told in the darkest corners of galactic bars, rumors that most dismissed as fantasy. There was a species, the elder said, his voice trembling. They called themselves humans. They came from a world so hostile that it forged them into the ultimate survivors. They fought wars that scarred their planet. They split atoms and rewrote genetics. They touched the stars not with wonder, but with the determination of conquerors. And then, the stories say, they disappeared. They realized their capacity for destruction and chose isolation over domination. The bridge was silent. Everyone had heard fragments of these stories. Earth, the death world, humans, the warrior species that chose peace. Most had dismissed them as exaggerations, myths created to scare young warriors. But now, staring at the impossible sphere, the myth seemed less fantastic. Vertex ran calculations on his console, his four hands moving in frantic patterns. Commander, if this is human technology, it explains the impossible readings. Their science was rumored to work on principles we don't understand. Quantum mechanics, taken to extremes, manipulation of fundamental forces, technology indistinguishable from magic. Sovereign Mela received similar speculation from her advisors. The Zalathi had their own legends about Earth. They spoke of a blue world that produced apex predators who learned to think, creatures who survived ice ages, plagues and wars that would have exterminated any other species. If humans had returned to the galactic stage, both fleets suddenly seemed very small. The sphere remained motionless for exactly 1 standard hour. Neither fleet dared to move. Neither commander wanted to be the first to act. The silence across all communication channels was deafening. Then, without warning, the sphere changed. Lines of blue light appeared on its surface, forming geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They weren't just designs. They were mathematical equations written in light, formulas that described concepts neither species had discovered. The patterns grew more complex, covering the entire sphere in a web of brilliant illumination. A signal burst from the sphere, transmitted on every frequency simultaneously. It wasn't a message in any known language. It was pure mathematics, universal constants arranged in a pattern that any spacefaring civilization would recognize. It was a greeting, a warning, and a statement of intent all in one. When the translation algorithms finally parsed it, the message was simple. Humanity observes, humanity remembers, humanity decides. Both fleets erupted in chaos. The Corvani argued about whether to attack or retreat. The Zalathi bioships released pheromone clouds of fear that drifted through space. But before either side could act, the sphere did something that would be remembered in galactic history forever. It opened. The perfect black surface split along, invisible seams revealing an interior that glowed with the light of a captured star. From within emerged a ship unlike anything in any database. It was long and angular, built from materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. Its hull was covered in what looked like scales, each one a sensor or weapon or both. This was not the crude technology of a young species. This was the refined creation of a civilization that had mastered every aspect of physics. The ship was smaller than the sphere but larger than any battleship in either fleet. It moved without visible propulsion, gliding through space as if the universe itself was carrying it. As it cleared the sphere, markings became visible on its hull. They were in an ancient script that translation systems identified as Earth Standard. The name of the ship was Arbiter. Commander Krex felt his electrical field fluctuate with fear. An arbiter was one who judged disputes. The humans hadn't come as conquerors. They had come as judges. And given the 3 centuries of war that had devastated this sector, neither the Corvani nor the Zalathi were confident they would like the verdict. The arbiter positioned itself exactly between the 2 fleets. It made no aggressive moves, deployed no weapons, raised no shields that anyone could detect. It simply existed, a statement in metal and energy that said more than any threat could. Vertex whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the bridge. Commander, what do we do? Krex had no answer. For the first time in his military career, he had no strategy, no formation, no plan. How did one fight an enemy that had surpassed the need for conventional warfare? How did one negotiate with a species that had chosen to reveal itself after centuries of hiding? The answer came from the Arbiter itself. A new signal, this time, directed specifically at both flagships. It was an invitation. 2 representatives, one from each species, were to board the human vessel. They would discuss the future of this sector. They would decide if the war continued or ended. The signal ended with a single line that made both commanders realize the gravity of their situation. You have 1 hour to decide. Humanity's patience is not infinite. Humanity's verdict commander Krex and Sovereign Mela stood in the Arbiter's receiving bay, both feeling smaller than they ever had in their lives. The interior of the human ship was impossibly advanced. The walls seemed to be made of liquid metal that responded to their presence, shifting and flowing to accommodate their different physiologies. The air was perfectly calibrated for both species, something that should have been impossible given their vastly different respiratory needs. They had come alone, against the protests of their crews. But the human message had been clear. To unarmed representatives, no weapons, no tricks, just conversation. The being that greeted them challenged every assumption they had about humans. Captain Sarah Chen was small by galactic standards, barely reaching Krex's chest and only the middle of Mela's. Serpentine form. Her skin was soft, without scales or natural armor. She had no claws, no fangs, no visible biological weapons. Yet both aliens felt an instinctive wariness around her. Evolution had given them the ability to recognize apex predators, and every instinct screamed that they were in the presence of one. Chen's eyes were what unsettled them most. They held a depth of experience that seemed impossible for such a young-looking creature. When she smiled, it was warm but carried an edge that suggested she had seen horrors they couldn't imagine. She spoke in perfect Corvani and Zalathi simultaneously, her voice somehow reaching each of them in their native language without translation. "Welcome to the Arbiter," she said, gesturing to chairs that materialized from the floor. "I am Captain Sarah Chen, representative of the Sol Federation and commander of this vessel. We have much to discuss." Krex's electrical field sparked with indignation. "By what right does Earth interfere in our conflict? This war is between the Corvani and Zalathi." Chen's smile didn't waver. "By the right of neighbors tired of your noise, Commander. Your war has spread beyond your borders. 17 neutral systems have been destroyed. 3 pre-spaceflight civilizations have been exterminated by your stray weapons. The gravitational disruptions from your largest battles have altered stellar formations. The galaxy has tolerated your conflict long enough. Mela's scales shifted to an aggressive pattern. And Earth thinks it can simply end a war that has lasted 3 centuries. You've been hiding while we've been fighting. What do you know of our grievances, our losses?" The captain touched a panel and the room transformed. They were suddenly standing in a holographic recreation of Earth, circa 1945. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead. The atomic bomb had just been dropped. "This was our Second World War," Chen said quietly. 60 million dead in 6 years. We thought it was the war to end all wars. We were wrong. The scene shifted. Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, cyber wars, resource conflicts, climate wars. Image after image of human conflict, each more devastating than the last. By the time we reached the stars, we had become masters of war. We could destroy planets, exterminate species, rewrite the genetic code of our enemies. We had weapons that could unravel the fabric of space itself. The hologram showed the last great human war, fought in space around Mars. The weapons used defied understanding. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Viruses that could destroy artificial intelligence. Bombs that could erase moments from time itself. We won that war, Chen continued. And in winning, we finally understood. War is not about victory. It's about what remains after the fighting stops. We looked at our scarred worlds, our traumatized children, our broken societies, and we made a choice. We would master war so completely that we would never need to fight again. The room returned to normal. Krex and Mela sat in stunned silence. The human captain walked to a window that showed the 2 fleets still frozen in their standoff. "You want to know why we've returned?" Chen asked. "Because your war is following the same path ours did. Escalation without purpose, destruction without meaning. You've forgotten why you're fighting." Both leaders started to protest, but Chen raised a hand. "Commander Krex, tell me the original cause of this war. Don't recite propaganda. Tell me the real reason your species first took up arms against the Zalathi." Krex's electrical field dimmed as he thought. The original cause? It had been about trading rights. a dispute over who could harvest resources from a particular nebula. That dispute had led to a skirmish which led to a battle, which led to a war that had consumed everything. Sovereign Mela. Chen turned to the Serpentine leader. Your turn. What grievance started this for your people? Mela's scales shifted uncomfortably. It had been about honor. A Corvani traitor had insulted a Zalathi diplomat. The demand for an apology had been refused. Pride had demanded satisfaction. 300 years, Chen said quietly. Trillions dead. Entire star systems destroyed. For trade rights and hurt feelings, both alien leaders felt shame for the first time in decades. When presented so starkly, their war seemed absurd. But the momentum of centuries wasn't easily stopped. Our people will never accept peace, Krex said. Too much blood has been spilled. Too many have lost everything. The hatred runs too deep. Chen nodded. We thought the same thing. That's why we developed the Prometheus Protocol. She touched another panel, and the sphere outside became visible. It wasn't a weapon or a ship. It was something far more powerful. It's a memory engine, Chen explained. Inside that sphere is a complete record of every moment of your war. Every death, every victory, every loss, every moment of heroism and horror. If activated, it will share these memories with every member of both your species simultaneously. You will all experience the war from both sides. Feel every death, understand every motivation, know every consequence. The implications were staggering. To experience 3 centuries of war from every perspective would either drive both species insane or force them to understand each other completely. It was not a weapon of war, but a weapon of forced empathy. We offer you 3 choices, Chen said. First, continue your war, and we will activate the Prometheus Protocol. Your species will either destroy themselves in the psychic trauma or emerge understanding each other too well to fight. Second, accept our arbitration. We will divide the disputed territories fairly, establish buffer zones, and monitor the peace for 100 years. Any violation will result in immediate intervention. And the third option? Mela asked, though she suspected she knew. Third, Chen's expression hardened. We end it for you. The Arbiter is one of 12,000 ships hidden throughout the galaxy, each one capable of ending a civilization in hours. We don't want to be conquerors, but we will not allow the galaxy to burn because 2 species can't overcome their pride. The silence that followed was absolute. Both leaders understood they were not being threatened, but being given a final opportunity to choose their own fate. Krex spoke first, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries. If we choose arbitration, how do we convince our people? How do we end 300 years of hatred? Chen smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. You start by telling the truth. Show them what I've shown you. Help them understand that continuing this war means losing everything that made it worth fighting in the first place. Your scientists will be given technology to help rebuild. Your cultures will be preserved. Your children will know peace. Mela's scales shifted to a pattern of consideration. And if some refuse? There are factions in both our governments that profit from this war. They will not accept peace easily. Then they will face humanity's judgment, Chen said simply. We have experience dealing with war profiteers and those who feed on conflict. They will find that humans have very creative ways of ensuring cooperation. The conversation continued for hours. Details were discussed, concerns addressed, and slowly, impossibly, a framework for peace began to emerge. When Krex and Mela returned to their ships, they carried with them data tablets containing humanity's proposal. The terms were fair, almost impossibly so. Earth wanted nothing for itself except the promise that both species would work toward peace. The reaction from both fleets was immediate and chaotic. Some called for immediate attack. Others wanted to accept before humanity changed its mind. But both leaders stood firm. They had seen what humanity was capable of, not just in war but in choosing peace. The next day, for the first time in 300 years, the Corvani Federation and the Zalathi Dominion signed a ceasefire. It wasn't peace yet, just a cessation of hostilities. But it was a beginning. The Arbiter remained at the nexus point, a silent guardian ensuring both sides honored their agreement. The sphere dissolved, its purpose served for now, but everyone knew it could return if needed. Captain, Chen stood on her bridge, watching the two fleets slowly separate. Her crew, all veterans of humanity's last wars, understood the weight of what they had accomplished. They had ended a war not through superior firepower, but through the threat of understanding. Her first officer, Commander James Thompson, stood beside her. "Do you think it will hold?" he asked. "The peace, I mean." Chen was quiet for a moment. "They'll stumble. There will be incidents, setbacks, those who try to restart the conflict. But yes, I think it will hold. They've seen what they could become if they continue down this path. Sometimes that's enough." As the Arbiter prepared to leave, one final message was broadcast to both fleets. Humanity watches, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. We have learned the cost of eternal war. We offer you the chance to learn it without paying the price we did. Use this opportunity wisely. The human ship vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving no trace except the peace it had enforced. But throughout the galaxy, other species took note. Humanity had returned, not with weapons of war, but with weapons of wisdom. They had evolved beyond the need to fight by becoming so good at it that no one dared challenge them. In the years that followed, the peace held. There were challenges, moments when war seemed inevitable again, but always in the background was the knowledge that humanity was watching. The ghost stories became legends, the legends became history, and history became a lesson. The galaxy had learned something valuable that day at the nexus point. The most dangerous species wasn't the one with the biggest guns or the largest fleets. It was the one that had mastered war so completely that it could choose peace and make others choose it too. Earth's warship had entered the battlefield and ended the battle without firing a shot. The galaxy trembled not at humanity's weapons, but at its wisdom. And in the vast darkness between stars, 12,000 human ships maintained their silent vigil, ensuring that the peace they had imposed would grow into something genuine. The war was over. The real work of peace had just begun.